One weapon killed more people in a single day than entire medieval armies could manage in months of siege warfare. Subscribe to Weapon Archive for more stories from history's forgotten inventions. This wasn't some advanced modern creation or secret military project. It was invented by a single man in his London workshop using technology that had existed for decades. Yet when it first appeared on battlefields, it didn't just change how wars were fought. It changed what war itself meant. The machine gun transformed human conflict so completely that military strategists are still grappling with its implications more than a century later. Before its invention, warfare had remained essentially unchanged for thousands of years. Armies faced each other across open fields, victory determined by discipline, courage, and numerical advantage. Then, everything changed. The story begins with Hiram Stevens Maxim, an American inventor working in London during the 1880s. Maxim wasn't a military man or weapons expert. He was an electrical engineer who had already invented everything from mousetraps to light bulbs. But a chance conversation at a European exhibition would redirect his genius towards something far more deadly. A fellow American allegedly told him that if he wanted to make real money, he should invent something that would help Europeans kill each other more efficiently. Maxim took this advice seriously. The question was, could one man's workshop invention truly change the face of war? The challenge seemed impossible at first. Existing weapons required soldiers to manually reload after each shot, creating natural pauses in combat that allowed armies to maneuver and regroup. What if that limitation could be eliminated entirely? What if warfare could become continuous? Maxim realized the solution lay in the weapon's own power. Every time a bullet fires, it creates recoil energy that typically goes to waste. Instead of letting that energy dissipate, Maxim designed a mechanism that captured it to automatically eject the spent cartridge and load the next round. The concept was elegant, but would it work? The first successful test occurred in 1884. Maxim's machine gun fired continuously as long as someone held the trigger and ammunition remained available. A single operator could now deliver the firepower of an entire infantry company. But even Maxim couldn't have predicted what would happen when his invention reached actual battlefields. The weapon's first major deployment came during European colonial campaigns in Africa during the 1890s. British forces equipped with just a handful of Maxim guns faced thousands of local warriors armed with traditional weapons. The results weren't battles in any conventional sense. They were something entirely different. At the Battle of the Shangani in 1893, 50 British soldiers with 4 Maxim guns defeated over 5,000 Ndebele warriors. The casualty ratio was so extreme it seemed like fiction. Similar massacres occurred across Africa as European powers carved up the continent with unprecedented ease. Yet these colonial campaigns were merely a preview of something far more catastrophic. What would happen when armies equipped with machine guns faced each other directly? The answer came in 1914, when the First World War erupted across Europe. Military commanders on all sides had observed machine guns in colonial settings, but they fundamentally misunderstood their implications. They assumed these weapons would simply make traditional cavalry charges and infantry advances more decisive. Instead, machine guns made traditional military tactics suicidal. The Western Front became a continuous line of trenches stretching from the North Sea to Switzerland, separated by barbed wire and machine gun nests. Any attempt to cross the space between opposing trenches resulted in immediate slaughter. On the first day of the Battle of the Somme alone, British forces suffered 60,000 casualties, many cut down by machine gun fire within minutes of leaving their trenches. Entire military doctrines that had developed over centuries became obsolete overnight. The age of cavalry charges, linear formations, and heroic individual combat had ended. Warfare became industrial, mechanical, and utterly impersonal. But the machine gun's impact extended beyond simple casualty figures. The stalemate it created fundamentally altered how nations approached conflict. Wars could no longer be won through quick, decisive battles. Victory required sustaining massive industrial production, mobilizing entire populations, and accepting casualty rates that previous generations would have considered apocalyptic. The machine gun transformed war from a contest between professional armies into total war between entire societies. Beyond the immediate battlefield, machine guns influenced popular culture and political movements for decades. They appeared in countless films, novels, and artworks as symbols of modern warfare's mechanized horror. Peace movements gained momentum partly by highlighting machine gun casualties, while revolutionary groups adopted them as symbols of armed resistance. The weapon also accelerated developments in medical care, as military surgeons learned to treat wounds that no previous generation of doctors had ever encountered. Perhaps most significantly, machine guns influenced how later weapons would be designed and deployed. The concept of automatic fire became standard across military equipment, from aircraft guns to naval weapons. Modern military tactics still revolve around controlling automatic weapons and protecting forces from their devastating effects. Even today's debates about civilian access to automatic weapons trace back to decisions made during the machine gun's early development. The machine gun stands as perhaps history's clearest example of how a single innovation can fundamentally reshape human civilization. Its legacy extends beyond military strategy into politics, culture, and the very nature of modern conflict. But Maxim's invention wasn't the only weapon that reshaped warfare through individual genius and tragic circumstances. Another creation, born from a devastating battlefield injury during World War II, would prove even more influential in shaping global politics. This weapon emerged from an unexpected source and became so successful that it remains the world's most widely used military rifle 70 years later, despite being designed by a man who never intended to create instruments of war. That story reveals how personal tragedy can reshape the balance of global power in ways no one could have anticipated. Subscribe to Weapon Archive to follow more stories that shaped history.